The council chamber of the Kethari Dominion shimmered with silver light. Great beings of every form and hue gathered beneath the translucent roof that displayed the spiraling stars beyond. The air was thick with tension and arrogance, the kind that only empires untouched by true fear could afford. High Speaker Araktal raised his four-ringed hand, his golden eyes narrowing. "The matter is simple," he declared. "The human colonies have expanded beyond the border treaties. They defy Dominion law. They must be corrected." A murmur spread through the delegates, a ripple of uncertainty. Among them sat Elder Vroa, whose crystalline skin caught the chamber's light like fractured glass. Her voice, soft and resonant, cut through the noise. "Do not provoke them," she said quietly. "You know what happens when you attack humans. You may wound them once, but they will never stop coming back." A scoff came from the far seat. Admiral Solmar of the Kethari fleets. "Old ghost tales," he said, resting back against his chair of light. "You've lived too long on stories, Vroa. Humanity has no fleet that rivals ours. They are scattered, small, and undisciplined. Their worlds barely whisper on the galactic scale." Vroa's eyes glowed faintly blue, a sign of deep sorrow among her kind. "And yet," she said, "they remember. Always. I was there when the Uruk struck at Earth's first colonies. The Uruk burned 3 worlds. The humans burned their entire species from the stars in response. Not one Uruk survived." Laughter rolled around the chamber, nervous laughter. Some mocked, others shifted uneasily, but Solmar's smirk only deepened. "Ancient history," he said. "Primitive times. They're civilized now, weak, soft." Vroa turned toward him, her crystalline fingers clasped. "No, Admiral. They are never soft. They only sleep, and when they wake it is with fire. But arrogance is louder than wisdom." The council voted 12-1. The order was given. The Dominion would correct humanity's expansion. Light years away, under the orange skies of a small frontier world called Helios Station, a human woman named Captain Mara Devlin stared at the transmission feed in disbelief. The message from the Kethari Dominion blinked in bold red glyphs. "Evacuate. You are trespassing. You have 7 days," her jaw tightened. "Trespassing?" she muttered, pacing the command deck. "We built this colony. We bled for this soil." Behind her, an engineer named Rafe adjusted his neural visor. "They think they can scare us off," he said. "Typical." Mara looked out through the observation glass. The horizon glowed gold, streaked with the towers of human progress, refineries, solar bridges, wind ports. Children played in the red dust below. They had made this world a home, and now someone wanted to take it away. She closed her eyes and breathed out slowly. "Send a message to Earth Command," she said. "Tell them the Kethari are moving warships near the border. Request confirmation of defense protocols." Rafe hesitated. "They'll take days to respond, Captain. Maybe weeks." Mara's eyes hardened. "Then we hold until they do." When the Kethari fleet arrived, it blotted out the dawn. 12 ships, each the size of a city, slid through orbit like silent beasts. They hailed once, demanded surrender, and when none came, they opened fire. The first plasma strike tore through the northern dome. Hundreds died in seconds. The air burned, the ground cracked. Mara ordered evacuations, but the comms fell silent as the second wave struck. She stood on the command deck, watching her planet's sky bleed. "They think we'll break," she whispered. "They have no idea. When the last power relay failed, she recorded a single message transmitted through the old, encrypted network only humans still used. Slow, but impossible to jam. Her voice was steady, even as the explosion shook the station. "This is Captain Mara Devlin of Helios Station. We are under attack by the Kethari Dominion. Civilian casualties are extreme. They've made their choice. Tell command. Tell them humanity remembers." 2 days later, the Dominion ships departed, leaving nothing but scorched earth and silence. On the edge of known space, the message arrived. Broken, static-ridden, but clear enough. In the darkness of the Terran War Command headquarters, an old admiral listened, unmoving, as Mara's final words played. The room was silent for a long time. Then, without a word, he rose and spoke 3 lines that would echo through every human fleet, every hidden colony, every world once thought too far to matter. They burned Helios. They've started something they cannot end. Ready, the hunters. The Kethari fleet returned home triumphant. Their ships cut through the void in clean formations glowing with the faint blue of victory lights. Admiral Solmar stood before his officers, every movement steeped in pride. "One colony," he said, "and they fell like leaves in storm. Humanity is no longer the threat our ancestors feared." Applause echoed through the command bridge. Yet somewhere deep in the silence of space, a shadow had begun to move, quiet, relentless, unseen. At the edge of the Sol system, inside the fortress moon Aegis Prime, the human response was already forming. The message from Helios Station had spread like a pulse of cold lightning through every relay and deep space archive. Old veterans, long since retired, reported for duty without being called. Civilians sent fuel, parts, even their ships. Humanity did not cry for vengeance, not yet. They simply remembered. Admiral Elias Ward, commander of the Terran Defense Network, stood before the great star map. His eyes were old and calm, but behind them flickered a fire that had not dimmed with age. "Helios was not a military target," he said, voice low and steady. "They wanted to make an example. They forgot what kind of species we are." Around him, officers shifted uneasily. Lieutenant Aaron Lee, youngest on the deck, whispered, "Sir, the Council will want diplomacy first." Elias looked at him, not in anger but with deep patience. "Son, diplomacy only works with those who understand fear. The Kethari think we've forgotten how to fight. They're wrong." He turned to the screen beside him. It displayed the faint trace of Helios, gone now, its orbit marked by debris. He spoke quietly, almost to himself. "They've awakened something that never truly sleeps." Meanwhile, far beyond the borders of human space, Elder Varroa sat alone within the crystalline halls of her homeworld, listening to the soft hum of the ancient memory crystals. She had warned them. She had begged the Council to listen. Now the visions had begun again, the shimmering echoes of war from centuries past. She could see fire spreading through the stars, a tide of vengeance that could not be contained. Her apprentice, a young empath named Leary, entered softly. "Elder," she said, "the fleet reports success." "The Council celebrates." Varroa's eyes dimmed to gray. "Success?" she murmured. "Foolishness. They do not hear what I hear." Leary hesitated.
"Hear what, Elder?"
Varroa turned to her slowly, the sound of the hunt beginning. On the barren world of Tethys, a single Kethari patrol ship drifted near an asteroid belt, scanning for minerals. Its captain, Renval, watched the monitors idly, until a strange distortion flickered on the edge of their sensors. "Commander," said his navigator, "we're picking up a signal." "No, several." "They're faint. Small ships moving fast," Ren frowned. "No known traffic out here. Identify." The navigator's voice trembled. "They're human signatures." Before Ren could respond, the stars themselves seemed to ignite. Hundreds of small vessels emerged from the darkness, sleek, black, nearly invisible until they moved. They didn't broadcast warnings or hails. They attacked in perfect silence. Missiles streaked like falling stars. The patrol ship's shields flared and shattered. Ren's voice broke through the static. "Who are they?" From the enemy transmission came a single phrase. Old Earth English, calm and cold. "For Helios." Then the line went dead. The Kethari ship vanished in a blaze of white. Back at Dominion Command, panic stirred. Reports trickled in from the outer rim. Small fleets destroyed, patrols vanishing, supply lines severed. The humans did not fight openly. They struck from shadows, hit and vanished like ghosts. "They call them hunters," whispered one officer. "They come without warning and they leave nothing." Admiral Solmar dismissed it at first. "Rebel remnants," he said. "Isolated raids? We will crush them in time." But Varroa's words haunted him. Humans never forget. On Aegis Prime, Admiral Ward stood before his fleet. Rows upon rows of ships newly refitted, their hulls marked with silent symbols of remembrance. He spoke softly to them over the comms, his voice echoing through the void. "They thought we would beg. They thought we would vanish quietly. But humanity is not made for silence. We will not burn their worlds. We will not enslave them. We will make them remember what it means to wake the fire in us." The fleet roared to life, not in hatred, but in purpose. For every fallen child of Helios, every broken home, every scar left behind, humanity rose again, not as conquerors but as hunters. And somewhere, in the farthest reaches of Kethari space, the stars began to tremble, not from the movement of planets or the breath of gods, but from the quiet, unstoppable footsteps of humanity's return. The war that wasn't called a war had begun, No declarations, no banners, no grand speeches, only silence and ash. The Dominion called them terrorists. The humans called them the Fallen's echo, and in the darkness between stars, the truth burned brighter than either name. Humanity had learned long ago that vengeance shouted is vengeance lost. Now their fleets moved in whispers, cloaked under ancient signal protocols and obsolete identification tags. To the Kethari, they looked like the ghosts of a long-dead age, until it was too late. On the Kethari world of Vaersha, a mining moon that supplied half the Dominion's plasma fuel, night fell red. The surface guards saw nothing at first, just the wind whispering through the steel ridges, the hum of the turbines. Then came the silence, deeper than night, heavy and wrong. Moments later, the sky fractured. A dozen human dropships pierced through the atmosphere, their hulls dark as oil, marked only by a single white symbol, a hand reaching upward through flame. Commander Rafe Devlin, brother to the lost Captain Mara, stood at the forefront, his armor black, his eyes hollow. "Remember Helios," he whispered into his comm. "Always," his team replied. What followed wasn't rage, it was precision. Every strike was surgical, every explosion deliberate. Power stations fell. Communications towers turned to molten glass. The humans left behind no chaos, only silence and smoke like the breath of a vanished storm. When Dominion reinforcements arrived, the colony was gone. Not captured, gone. The entire population evacuated, no bodies, no signals. Only a message carved into a slag wall. "We are not your prey." Far away, in the council chamber, Elder Vroa stood as the panic grew. Delegates shouted across the room, voices rising like thunder. "They destroy our outposts," one cried. "They strike without warning," shouted another.
"They are beneath us,"
growled a third. Vroa waited until silence fell, not from command but exhaustion. Then she spoke. "You do not understand them," she said. "You think they are fighting a war. They are not. They are keeping a promise." High Speaker Arektal slammed his clawed hand upon the table. "You speak as though you pity them." Vroa's crystalline eyes flickered, reflecting 1,000 hidden lights. "Pity?" she said. "No, I fear them. For once humanity decides that a thing must end, it ends." The council murmured uneasily. "Then what do you propose?" Arektal demanded. Vroa turned toward the star map above them. Tiny red marks pulsed where Kethari stations had once stood. "I propose we do what no empire has ever done when facing them," Arektal sneered. "And that is?" She looked at him with an expression older than sorrow. "We run." Meanwhile, aboard the Terran flagship Resolute, Admiral Elias Ward received a coded transmission. It came from a signal far beyond the Dominion border, an ancient beacon left from the First Interstellar War. The holographic projection flickered to life. A young voice, static-laced. "Admiral, this is Scout Team Theta 4. We found something strange." Ward leaned forward. "Report. It's old," said the scout. "A Kethari archive, abandoned for centuries. It talks about us and about humans. They knew our potential before we did. They called us a sleeping flame. They feared us." Ward's eyes narrowed. "Transmit everything. Then burn it." The scout hesitated. "Burn it, sir?" Ward's voice was low and final. "No one needs to remember why they feared us, only that they should have listened." In a quiet corner of the galaxy, on a neutral world of traders and wanderers, rumors began to spread. Stories told in low voices, of human ships that appeared like ghosts and vanished into starlight, of soldiers who didn't kill needlessly, but who never left a promise unfulfilled, of one name whispered in every port, every shadowed cantina: Helios. The word had become more than a tragedy. It was a vow. Elder Vroa stood on her balcony that night, gazing at the stars that once seemed so peaceful. The constellations of the Dominion had begun to disappear one by one as human fleets moved silently, burning everything that carried the Dominion's mark. Leary, her apprentice, approached quietly. "Elder," she said, "is there no way to stop them?" Vroa smiled faintly, a sound like crystal cracking. "Perhaps, child, but not through fear. Humanity is not a beast to be caged. They are the fire that builds the cage." She looked toward the horizon, where the distant flare of a dying world lit the clouds. "Once," she whispered, "I thought we ruled the stars. Now I see we only borrowed them." In that moment, across countless systems, alarms rang through Kethari space. Entire fleets were mobilized. For the first time in centuries, the Dominion realized something terrifying. The humans were not fighting for victory. They were fighting for memory. The stars themselves seemed to grieve. Across the Kethari Dominion, worlds that had known only peace and arrogance for generations now trembled beneath invisible storms. The humans never announced their movements, never demanded surrender. They struck, vanished, and left silence in their wake, a silence heavier than defeat. Admiral Solmar stared at the latest reports, the glow of his console painting his scaled face pale blue. 17 colonies gone, his aide whispered. Fuel lines severed. Our trade fleets avoid even the border zones now. Solmar's jaw tightened. They don't have the strength to fight openly. They're only scavengers. Scavengers don't cripple a star network. Sir, the aide interrupted softly. For the first time, Solmar had no answer. He had led the attack on Helios, watched from orbit as fire consumed the human colony. He had believed it would end there. Yet now every night when the ship was silent and the stars glimmered beyond the viewport, he saw that same fire again, not burning the humans, but reflected in their eyes. On Aegis Prime, Admiral Elias Ward stood before a long table of his officers. The air was heavy with exhaustion, but not defeat. Operation Veil has dismantled half their frontier, said Commander Aaron Lee, once timid, now hardened by months of silent war. But they're adapting. We've intercepted coded transmissions and they're building something. Elias nodded. Of course they are. Fear drives invention, but so does guilt. He turned to the holographic projection of their fleet movements. Tiny red lights pulsed across the galaxy. Human hunter groups. I want them coordinated, he said. No more random strikes. We remind them that Helios was not an accident. It was a choice. And choices have weight. Rafe Devlin stepped forward, his voice steady though grief lay thick beneath it. Then let me lead the next one, sir. Let me bring them the message myself. Elias looked at him a long time. You're not ready. I'll never be ready, Rafe replied. But I'll never stop. A silence passed, not of refusal but understanding. Elias finally nodded. Then go. But remember, vengeance burns both hands. Rafe's expression softened, a flicker of humanity amid iron resolve. It already has, Admiral. On the Kethari homeworld, Elder Vroa stood before the council again, her tone no longer pleading, only weary. I warned you, she said. And now the hunt has come for all of us. High Speaker Eric Tal's composure fractured. Then what would you have us do, Vroa? Beg? Vroa looked at him with ancient calm. Not beg, yield. Gasps filled the chamber. Eric Tal slammed his claws against the dais. Never. The Dominion does not kneel before lesser species. Lesser? Vroa echoed softly. Then tell me, Speaker, and why are we the ones hiding? No one spoke. She turned away slowly, the light from the chamber refracting off her crystalline skin like a fading star. You built an empire on pride, she said, her voice almost tender. They build theirs on pain, and pain lasts longer. Somewhere beyond the edges of Kethari space, in the ruins of an old listening post, Rafe Devlin and his squad landed under the cover of night. They found evidence of what the Dominion was building. Not fleets, but weapons. Massive planetary cannons capable of annihilating worlds from light years away. Rafe's breath caught. They're planning to end this all at once. His second-in-command, Leora, frowned. Can they? Rafe looked at the glowing schematics, jaw tightening. Not if we end it first. The raid that followed was quick, brutal, and quiet. Not a single Dominion guard survived to raise alarm. The humans left behind nothing but shadows and one message pulsing in red on the main terminal. You burned Helios. We remember, and we learn. Back on Aegis Prime, the news of their success spread quickly. But Admiral Ward did not smile. Aaron Lee approached hesitantly. We've crippled their weapon project, sir. We've done what we set out to do. Elias turned, his eyes distant. And how many more will die believing vengeance can fill the whole Helios left? Aaron faltered. Sir? Elias sighed, staring at the stars through the viewport. Every time we strike, they learn to hate us more. One day there will be no Kethari left, and still we won't feel peace. That is the weight of vengeance, Lieutenant. It never ends. It only grows. Aaron lowered his gaze. Then why continue? Because some lessons, Elias said softly, must be carved into history, not for them, but for us. So we never forget what kind of fire we carry. In the darkness between stars, the Kethari Dominion trembled, not from defeat alone, but from realization. The humans were not fighting to win. They were fighting so that no one would ever dare strike them again. And across the galaxy, wherever the words Helios Station were whispered, there followed another phrase, spoken now in awe, not mockery. Do not attack humans. They will hunt you forever. The galaxy had grown quiet. Too quiet. Trade routes that once pulsed with the lifeblood of civilizations now lay empty. Communication arrays broadcast only static. Entire sectors vanished from the Dominion's maps, blacked out by human interference. The Kethari Dominion, once proud and radiant, was now fractured. Its fleets scattered, its council divided. The war that had no name had become something else, a haunting. Admiral Solmar stood in the darkened war room of the Dominion flagship Vigilant Dawn. The holographic display before him showed the same message, repeated in every intercepted frequency. Remember Helios. He slammed his fist against the console, the impact echoing through the chamber. They mock us, he shouted, like shadows laughing at the storm. His aide, pale and trembling, whispered, Admiral, they have taken the Aaron system. Our border fleets report heavy losses. The humans are coordinating now, entire flotillas. Solmar's chest tightened. Flotillas? Impossible. They're fragmented scavengers, not... Sir, the aide interrupted softly. They've united. The words struck harder than any blow. For the first time, Solmar saw the truth behind their fear. Humanity's strength was not in numbers or technology. It was in will. He turned away, voice low. Send word to the Council. Tell them we have awakened something that remembers too well. Far beyond the Dominion's reach, aboard the Terran flagship Resolute, Admiral Elias Ward read the same reports in reverse. Every human victory was recorded not as triumph, but as testimony. He sat alone in his quarters, staring at a small holographic projection. Captain Mara Devlin's final message from Helios. Her face flickered through static. Young, steady, resolute. Tell them humanity remembers. Elias closed his eyes. We do, he whispered. There was a knock at his door. Aaron Lee stepped in quietly. Sir, Rafe's team has returned. They took the Aaron system with minimal loss. Elias nodded slowly. And the civilians? Aaron hesitated. There were none left, sir. The Kethari evacuated before we arrived. Evacuated, Elias murmured. They've learned. He rose and walked to the viewport. Stars glittered beyond, beautiful, cold, ancient. And yet we keep teaching. Aaron studied him. Sir, when will it end? When we can look at the stars again without remembering smoke, Elias said softly. But not yet. On the crystalline world of Thesara, Elder Vroa sat beside the sea of glass, its surface rippling like liquid light. Her apprentice, Leary, watched her carefully. You haven't slept, Elder. Vroa smiled faintly, though sorrow dimmed her glow. The stars don't sleep, child. They watch, Leary hesitated. They say the humans are monsters. Vroa turned her gaze to the horizon where the red sun dipped low. No, monsters kill for hunger or power. Humans kill for memory. There's a difference. And it's far more terrible. She lifted a hand, touching the air as though feeling the heartbeat of the universe itself.
Can you hear it, Leary?
The rhythm between the stars? Leary frowned. Hear what? The song, Vroa said softly. The song of broken stars. It's the sound of regret. That night, the Vigilant Dawn received a distress signal. Faint, fragmented, but unmistakably Kethari Solmar's crew moved to intercept. But when they arrived, the system was empty. No planets, no ships, no debris. Only an echo of their own distress signal played back to them. A voice came over the comms. Human, calm, clear. You took our home. We took your silence, then nothing. The bridge was utterly still. Even the hum of the engine seemed to fade. Solmar whispered, Where are they? His aide swallowed. Everywhere. And nowhere, sir. Back on Aegis Prime, the human fleet gathered once more. Not to celebrate, but to remember. The great halls of the Fleet Cathedral glowed with soft light. Names of the fallen carved into the walls. Every soldier, every civilian. Every lost child of Helios. Rafe stood before the memorial, tracing his sister's name with trembling fingers. We're making them pay, Mara, he whispered. I hope that's enough. Admiral Ward approached quietly. Would she have wanted this? Rafe turned, his eyes heavy with exhaustion. She wanted peace. But peace was burned with Helios. Ward nodded slowly. And still, we must find it again before we lose ourselves to the fire we lit. In the vastness of space, the war slowed. Both sides hesitated, caught between exhaustion and fear. The humans had proven their point, and yet, the wound ran deeper than vengeance could heal. Across the galaxy, the legend spread, whispered even among the Dominion's young. If you strike a human, the stars themselves will burn to avenge them. And though many scoffed, none dared test the truth. Elder Vroa stood upon her balcony one final time, watching streaks of light cross the night sky. Human ships passing quietly, not to conquer but to leave. They do not fight to rule, she murmured. They fight to remember. Leary stood beside her, voice trembling. Then what happens now? Vroa looked at the horizon, and for the first time in centuries she smiled. Now we learn the one lesson every empire forgets before it falls. Leary blinked. And what lesson is that, Elder? That there is nothing more dangerous, Vroa whispered, than a human with a reason. The galaxy held its breath, not from fear alone, but from the weight of history, the quiet, steady reminder that every action had consequence. Humanity moved like a storm unseen, and every world that had known the Dominion's rule now whispered their name in caution. On the bridge of the Terran flagship Resolute, Admiral Elias Ward stood silently as his fleet cruised through the errand system. The remnants of Kethari fortifications smoldered across orbital stations, their fires dying slowly in the vacuum of space. Aaron Lee approached him cautiously. Sir, the Council has sent envoys. They want to negotiate. Ward didn't turn. Let them come, he said quietly. But know this, humans do not negotiate from weakness. We negotiate from memory, Lee frowned. Memory? Ward finally looked at him, his eyes steel beneath exhaustion. Memory is a ledger of what was taken from us. And when humanity writes that ledger, the universe remembers. Back in Kethari space, the Council was fractured, trembling under the human onslaught. Even the High Speaker's golden eyes betrayed uncertainty as he addressed the assembly. We underestimated them, he said. They are relentless. Elder Vroa, standing among them, only nodded. Relentless because they must be. Every human you struck, every colony you burned left a scar. Scars do not fade. They gather strength. A young delegate, trembling, asked, But can we survive them? Vroa's voice was calm but cutting. Perhaps, if you learn humility before pride destroys you. But know this, the price of remembrance is always higher than the cost of the first mistake. No one spoke for a long time. The chamber's light seemed colder, sharper, slicing through every shadow of arrogance. On a ruined colony orbiting a shattered moon, Rafe Devlin watched the remains of what had once been a thriving Kethari supply station. He knelt beside a scorched control terminal, its surface etched with molten streaks of fire. Every strike costs, said Leora, standing behind him. Her armor was scorched, her face streaked with soot. Every victory takes something from us, too. Rafe didn't answer immediately. He traced his fingers along a flickering panel. Helios was the beginning, he said softly. We lost her, but we learned. Every life we save, every system we liberate, it carries her memory forward. Leora nodded. And if we fail? Rafe's jaw tightened. Then we die knowing we did not fight hard enough. And humanity remembers even the failures. In the void near Thessera, Elder Vroa gazed down at the galaxy from her crystal balcony. Each flare of human ships reminded her of her own warnings and of how few had listened. Do you think they can be stopped? Leary asked. Vroa's eyes shimmered with the faint glow of knowledge older than empires. Stopped? Perhaps if the Dominion understands what they've awakened, but not with fleets, not with power, only with recognition of what they've lost. She turned her gaze toward the horizon, where the stars themselves seemed to shimmer with purpose. Humans are the ledger, Leary. They measure every injustice. They do not forgive easily, and they never forget. In the Dominion's capital world of Calith Prime, alarms blared across the city as human ships appeared again, not to destroy but to warn. Their message was simple yet carried in every pulse of light. Your empire's choices will echo through eternity. Remember the price of the fire you lit. The council scrambled, dispatching fleets and envoys, but the humans had already moved on. Their strike was not for conquest. It was for teaching, for leaving memory as a blade. High Speaker Arektal clenched his hands, the golden light in his eyes flickering. We underestimated them. Vroa's voice rang in his mind, as sharp and clear as crystal. You will never underestimate them again. You can only hope to survive. Back on Aegis Prime, Admiral Ward addressed his fleet in silence, the words heavy with weight but resolute. Humans do not seek glory. They seek remembrance. They do not fight for empire. They fight for what was taken from them, for what is owed to the past. He paused, letting the quiet settle over the bridge like a shroud. And when you face a human who remembers, you will find that the universe itself is sharper than any weapon we wield. Rafe stood at the ready, staring at the stars. The Kethari will learn, he said softly. And when they do, they will never make the same mistake again. Not any of them. Admiral Ward nodded. No, not any of them. And that is the price of remembrance. In the endless void across burned worlds and shattered fleets, humanity moved quietly, vigilant, patient, and unyielding. Every system touched by their fire, every colony they defended, carried the memory of what had been lost. And somewhere in the shadows of the Dominion, Elder Vroa whispered to herself, a note of awe in her voice. They do not fight for power. They fight so that the universe never forgets. The galaxy was no longer the same. The Kethari Dominion, once a monument to pride and arrogance, now trembled under the quiet, relentless hand of humanity. Ships moved like shadows through empty systems. Fleets once unstoppable, now reduced to whispers. Yet the humans did not celebrate. They never had. Their victories were not for glory, but for memory. For the lives lost and the world stolen. Their fire was patient, unwavering, eternal. On the bridge of the Terran flagship Resolute, Admiral Helios Ward stood, watching the stars streak past. Every system in their path bore scars of the Dominion, burned colonies, shattered fleets, silent stations. But each system also carried a promise. Humans remembered. Rafe Devlin approached, armor scorched, eyes heavy with loss and determination. Sir, the Kethari are consolidating. They're sending envoys again. Ward's eyes did not leave the stars. Good, he said quietly. Let them come. But they will not meet anger. They will meet memory. They will meet what they have awakened. Rafe frowned. Memory, how can it protect us? Ward turned, gaze calm and piercing. Memory is not protection.
It is warning.
And when humans carry it, it is fire that never sleeps. Across Kethari space, envoys arrived on neutral ground. High Speaker Arektal, his scales dulled from fear and exhaustion, addressed the humans in a chamber of glass and metal. His voice was steady but strained. You have won, not through strength alone, but through cunning and resolve. What is your demand? Rafe stepped forward. His voice echoed across the hall, clear, calm, and unyielding. We demand recognition. Not surrender. Not subjugation. We demand that you remember Helios and all that you have done to those we loved. And we demand that you will not make the same mistake again. Arektal's jaw tightened. He swallowed past pride and fury. And if we refuse? Rafe's eyes were steady, burning with the memory of his sister Mara. Then the fire continues. And it never sleeps. The chamber fell silent. No one dared respond immediately. For the first time in centuries, the Kethari understood what they had truly faced. A species that did not forget, that did not forgive lightly, and that carried vengeance like a quiet, unstoppable tide. On Thesara, Elder Vroa watched the stars flicker as the humans passed through the sector. Her apprentice Leary asked softly, Do they ever stop? Vroa's gaze was distant, thoughtful. They do not need to. Their fire is not anger alone. It is memory, and memory does not tire. Once ignited, it burns until the lesson is learned. Leary frowned. And the Dominion? Vroa's crystal fingers traced the starlight. They will learn. Or they will fall. That is the way of the universe. The fire teaches faster than any council or decree ever could. On Aegis Prime, the human fleet regrouped, not for conquest, but for remembrance. Every fallen comrade, every lost colony, every scar left by the Dominion's arrogance was etched into the fleet's movements. Each ship carried the names of the lost, glowing softly along the hulls like constellations themselves. Admiral Ward stood before them, voice calm, commanding, unwavering. We do not fight for empire. We do not fight for glory. We fight for memory. We fight so that no life is forgotten, no fire left unrecorded. And we fight so that the universe knows the human spirit cannot be crushed. The fire never sleeps. The fleet's engines flared in unison, a quiet roar through the void, and in that moment, the galaxy understood. Humanity was not merely a species. They were a force of remembrance, of resilience, of unbroken will. The Kethari Dominion would survive, perhaps, but the arrogance that had built it would never rise again. Every council chamber, every ship, every world now carried the memory of Helios and the quiet, unstoppable fire of the humans who had refused to bow. And across the stars, whispered from system to system, one warning grew louder with each passing light year. Do not attack humans. They will hunt you forever. It was no longer just a warning. It was a truth. And the universe would never forget it. On the horizon of a quiet, distant system, Rafe Devlin gazed at the stars, thinking of his sister Mara, of Helios, of all they had lost and all they had preserved. A soft smile touched his face. We will never forget, he whispered. And somewhere, far beyond reach, the stars themselves seemed to shine brighter, as if echoing the promise. Humanity's fire never sleeps and it will never be extinguished.